Uchimura is still adjusting to the idea of his new life. Just a few days ago, he was a simple office worker in a small country, and now he is a high-ranking member of the Dark Lord's demon army. He now has a large office, and is determined to give his all to meet the expectations of the Dark Lord, the only one who has ever recognized his worth. Now that Uchimura has accepted the job, he wants to follow proper etiquette, such as greeting all of his fellow high-ranking officers, even those he hasn't had a chance to speak to yet. He first goes to Sylphid's office, knocks on the door, and is greeted by a lovely girl who asks him who he is. Uchimura introduces himself as the new high-ranking officer and explains his intention to speak to Sylphid. The girl apologizes and informs him that Sylphid has been away for some time. She introduces herself as Sylphid's assistant, Belinda, and promises to notify her boss of his visit before slamming the door in his face. Uchimura accepts his failure for the day, but decides to keep trying. Just then, Ulmandra arrives to tell him that the Dark Lord has a new task for him. The Dark Lord assigns him to negotiate a merger with the Ogre tribe, as strengthening the demon army with demi-human tribes is critical. Ogres are one of the most important tribes. Ogres have military power similar to the demon army and lead neighboring races. Because of this, they refuse to join another army of equal strength. A merger could be very beneficial to both sides, but if something goes wrong, they would also be very dangerous enemies. In the human world, such a negotiation would be similar to a corporate merger. Uchimura knows that it is a challenging task, but the Dark Lord believes that he can carry it out. Knowing how dangerous the mission could be, Ulmandra offers to accompany him. Uchimura thanks her, and Ulmandra, trying to downplay her concern, admits that she worries too much if she doesn't go with him. She suggests that they rely on each other more as fellow high-ranking officers. Uchimura agrees and proposes to visit Gnome before embarking on their mission. Gnome is the leader of the demi-humans and could provide crucial information for negotiating with the ogres. Ulmandra refuses to see Gnome and instead goes to check out the carriage. Uchimura thinks it's a good idea to split up the tasks to speed up the process. He goes to the training ground, where Gnome is overseeing his subordinates' exercises. He sees that he has them highly motivated and can handle a large number of subordinates effectively. Gnome approaches him and asks what he wants. Uchimura explains that he wanted to introduce himself formally and ask if he has any useful information about the ogres. Gnome informs her that Ogur, the chief, is a complicated individual due to his boldness and bravery. His rivals see him as a dictator, is all the information she can provide. She then asks Uchimura to get that thing out of her sight, as her subordinates get upset when there are demons around. Uchimura doesn't understand until he notices Ulmandra standing behind him. Ulmandra is visibly angered by Gnome's comments and tells Uchimura that she came to find him because he was taking too long, and she began to worry about him. Gnome again asks Uchimura to leave with that thing as soon as possible. Ulmandra, furious at being called a thing, barely contains herself. Uchimura now understands that the two have a strained relationship. At night, Uchimura and Ulmandra arrive at the Ogre tribe, where the guards make them wait for the chief's permission to enter. Ulmandra is annoyed by this, but Uchimura knows that such negotiations begin even before reaching the table. He tells Ulmandra that making the other party wait is common in negotiations and advises her to stay calm, but she only grows more irritated. At that moment, a pretty ogre girl arrives to escort them inside. As they enter the castle, Uchimura notices how grand and imposing the place is. Ulmandra warns him not to let his guard down, as ogres are very dangerous. But Uchimura is only concerned about the tribe's chief, whom Gnome described as a formidable rival. They finally reach the hall where Ogure awaits. Ulmandra attempts to present their interests, but Ogure silences her and suggests she shouldn't speak without permission. Furious, Ulmandra holds back to avoid ruining the situation. Ogure assumes the demon army has come to surrender and says he'll accept, but only if they eliminate the Dark Lord. Ulmandra is fuming, but Uchimura manages to hold her back. Uchimura replies to Ogure that they'll consider it, and thanks him for making time to meet with them. He takes Ulmandra and leaves. Outside the castle, Ulmandra explodes in anger. Uchimura asks her to calm down, and explains that Ogure was trying to provoke them into breaking off negotiations. Ogure has no intention of negotiating but wants to avoid unnecessary conflict. That's why he insulted them, so that if the deal falls through, it would be their fault, not his. Ulmandra understands and asks if Uchimura wasn't offended by the insult to their leader. Uchimura admits he was, but reacting would only harm the Dark Lord. If they broke off the talks, the ogres could ally with someone else and attack the demon army. If no agreement can be reached, it's better to withdraw for now. Ulmandra understands and apologizes for her reaction, asking what they will do next. At that moment, the ogre who let them in appears, introducing herself as Olulu, Ogure's daughter. Ulmandra suspects she is about to attack, but Uchimura calms her down and asks Olulu what she wants. She replies that she wants her father to step down from the throne. Olulu leads them to an abandoned warehouse that turns out to be the castle's storage room. Apparently, the tribe has been facing economic hardships, struggling even to feed themselves. This aligns with Uchimura's suspicions, as he noticed the guards' worn armor and the dimly lit, imposing castle, typical signs of a declining enterprise. Olulu believes the tribe can only be saved by forging a pact with the demon army, but Ogure is stubborn and burdened by illness. That's why they had to wait so long to see him. He struggles just to stand. Olulu knows that if her father were to pass away at the wrong time, it would spell the end of the tribe. Uchimura understands her concerns, but warns her that exposing such sensitive information is reckless. Olulu notices Uchimura's kind demeanor and assumes he must be soft-hearted, a sentiment Ulmandra agrees with. Olulu admits she shared this private information because she sees Uchimura as a good person and proposes marriage, suggesting he become the new leader of the ogres. Uchimura is shocked and Ulmandra grows furious upon hearing this. Olulu insists that he is the tribe's best hope, as the other ogres are too influenced by Ogre's stubbornness. As Olulu pressures him to marry immediately, Ulmandra, attempting to conceal her fury, intervenes and asks for time to consider the proposal. Later, Uchimura returns to his office and reflects deeply on the situation, pondering the best course of action. Once again, he finds himself in the imaginary bar of his mind, sipping a drink. He overhears Ulmandra shouting at the bartender, insisting the lion is the best beast king, to which the bartender simply shakes his head. Ulmandra then asks Uchimura's opinion. Who is stronger, the lion or the gorilla? Uchimura is unsure how to answer. The waiter mentions the intimidating drumming of the gorilla, while Ulmandra counters with the scratching of the lion. The waiter dismisses this, pointing out that cats scratch too, which leads Ulmandra to argue that lions hunt in packs. As Uchimura contemplates these points while finishing his drink, he seems to find inspiration. Adjusting his tie, he prepares to close the deal. The next day, Ulmandra finds him preparing a carriage for departure. But instead of heading to see the ogres, he has a different destination in mind. Confused, Ulmandra asks where they are going. Uchimura tells her he'll explain on the way, adding that if everything goes according to plan, the ogre leader himself will initiate the negotiation. A week later, Ogure summons them, furious, demanding to know why the neighboring tribes are joining the demon army. Uchimura smiles, seeing that his plan is working. During the carriage ride a week earlier, he had explained to Ulmandra his intention to recruit the other tribes first, suspecting they were also struggling financially since they hadn't offered any aid to the ogres. By annexing the mid-tier tribes associated with the ogres, Uchimura referred to this strategy as the corporate takeover of major companies. It's a method he had used successfully before. If you approach a major company directly, you'll get kicked out. But if you secure deals with mid-sized companies first, the major one will have no choice but to listen. With the first step complete, they now have Ogure's attention. Uchimura explains to the leader that these tribes were struggling to survive, and joining the demon army ensured their survival. Ogure, increasingly irritated, claims those tribes were under ogre territory and refuses to tolerate it. Uchimura smiles again, recognizing that Ogure is now emotional and therefore less logical. In negotiations, the first to lose their temper loses the upper hand. Uchimura apologizes but insists the fusion was fair and included a deal with the ogre tribe. Ogure counters that no deal was made with him. Ulmandra interjects, saying they didn't need to make a deal with him. At that moment, Olulu enters the room, revealing she was responsible for organizing negotiations with the neighboring tribes, as she holds the authority to do so. Olulu explains to her father that their priority must be the lives of their people, and the best option is to ally with the demon army. Ogure attempts to argue, but Olulu cuts him off, telling him that, painful as it may be to admit, the great, invincible Ogure is now a sick, old man. Uchimura proposes an alliance with the demon army as equals. He knows that under the Dark Lord's empire, there's no real distinction between being annexed and being an ally, since autonomy is allowed. However, to someone as proud as Ogure, being an ally versus a subordinate is a significant difference. Ogure agrees to consider the proposal and promises to give them an answer later. Uchimura leaves, confident that the negotiations went perfectly. A few days later, Ulmandra goes to look for Uchimura, as Ogure is summoning them to reach an agreement, but finds him surrounded by large piles of papers. Ulmandra suggests picking someone at random, but Uchimura dismisses the idea. He wishes he could choose Ulmandra as his assistant, which excites her, though she doesn't realize it's only because she's the only person in this world he knows. Suddenly, Ululu arrives, sent to finalize the agreement. She announces that Ogure is delegating responsibilities, and a new leader will soon take the throne. As a token of gratitude, Ululu offers Uchimura a reward of his choosing. Without hesitation, he requests for her to become his assistant. Ululu eagerly embraces the offer, much to Ulmandra's dismay as her bubble of hope shatters. Hey, if you made it to this part of the video, don't forget to write the word Exquisito in the comment section. Thank you so much and see you in the next video.